Hey, Longevity Junky, it's time to get your fix. I'm Nikki Lee.
I'm Buck Joffrey.
And today we're going to talk with unconventional relationship expert, Dr. Joli Hamilton. And we have a Reddit story to share with you. But first, Buck, what are you up to right now?
Well, I worked out today.
That's good.
And I did some calls and I wrote a little bit and here I am with you, and nothing spectacular. No, it's pretty status quo here. How about you? Are you doing anything interesting?
I am actually. I'm taking a break. So I just flew into, because I'm sure you can see I'm in a different location. I flew into Cabo. I'm in Cabo, Mexico right now. And I'm here at a mastermind retreat. And right now, like literally today, well, we have this like expert who are experts on grief.
Oh, okay. What kind of mastermind is it? Mastermind in what?
It's like a very small group of like high value functioning entrepreneurs. I guess this one is about grief, dealing with loss and grief. This is a big focus of what's going on. And it's actually perfect timing for me because I just lost my grandpa. So yesterday I was literally at a funeral, and then I'm flying here today to kind of help me deal with it, which is kind of interesting, divine timing.
Yeah, timing. This is pretty spectacular.
I know.
Is this the group that when we talked about this, I think that you manifested the show?
Oh, that's so funny. Actually,
tell the story, because it's kind of a crazy story. It is.
So two of those people from when I was there are here. The creator is a guy I met there. So, okay, yes. So when I was in Norway doing that biking initiation, I was at another mastermind with high functioning entrepreneurs, and we had a hot seat this one day. And I was sitting in the hot seat. I got picked to be in it. And we went over this in like very, very in depth, like all these entrepreneurs are sitting out and I'm in a hot seat. And basically I get to share my problem or what I'm looking for. And I get help from all these, very successful entrepreneurs on how to achieve my goal, basically. And what I really wanted was, one of the things that came up was that I really wanted a podcast that like I can help people, that I can share my wisdom about anything health and, just being able to help people, because health is my passion and things like that. And they were like, what you need, because I was trying to do one on my own. I had another podcast, but it was like, I'm not good at promoting. I'm not that's just not, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not very good. So they were like, you need one where you have like a producer, where you have an editor, so you can be the talent and you can actually do what you do best and all these things. So after that hot seat, I literally go back. I'm in Norway and I go back to my room, and Buck had just texted me that a producer friend of yours wanted to interview me to see if there was like synergy or anything about like us doing a show together, that since you're a doctor, ends up being about health. And it was so manifested so fast. And that was a powerful day, because exactly like the divine timing of that, the manifestation was incredible. I literally was able to go back out to the people that I was with and be like, you guys, what we just talked about, I think that's happening. That's cool. Now in real time.
I tell people that story. I think it's fascinating. The timing is perfect, right? I like literally, I think the idea came up and the producer asked me like if I knew anybody. I'm like, I think I know somebody who's really interested and she might really want to do it. Because I think what happened is like a few weeks before I was working, I have another different longevity thing going on. And I was telling you about that. And you had mentioned, well, gosh, do you want to co-host?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, this is kind of I just kept it in mind that you had an interest in it. And so boom, the next thing you know, he asked me if I want to co-host something, do, this partnership with this, and you came to mind. So that's how the show became a thing. So manifesting, Nikki Lee, manifestation by Nikki Lee.
Hell yeah. Manifesting at its greatest. That's one of my favorite things too. Just to understand that like what you want, if you really focus on it and you can speak it into existence basically. And my rate is rapid. I don't know how fast I can have. And it's one of my favorite things. And Buck, I love doing this with you. So
well, that's good. Well, speaking of which, what do we got going on here next?
Oh, we have a really cool Reddit story, which I always find very entertaining. Yeah. So here's Reddit on Reddit. Okay, so this week it comes from Ask Reddit. The question was for medical professionals of Reddit. It was, have you ever had a patient so lacking in common sense you wondered how they made it this far? If so, what is your story? Okay, here we go.
All right.
I'm a pharmacist. One evening shift, I was working a relief shift, not my usual pharmacy. A man comes in looking distressed. Man, I had sexual relations with a woman I did not intend to pursue a long-term relationship with.
Kind of sounds like Bill Clinton. I did not.
I did not have sexual relations
with that
woman,
didn't it?
Lewinsky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then he goes, yes, he said it just like that. So me, okay, I'm assuming there was an accident or it was unprotected. How long ago did it happen? The man. Last night at 7 p.m. on the couch. Whoa, TMI. I did that's so funny. Whoa. On the couch. Yeah, like that mattered, right?
That helps the pharmacist a lot, right?
This is going to get really good. Whoa, TMI. I just need to know approximate time to know if Plan B will work. Me. I have this medication called Plan B, and since the incident happened within 72 hours, man, oh yes, I got that for her already. Yesterday, right after we finished. We want to know if there's anything we can do to know if she's pregnant now. Me, well, unfortunately not. She'll have to wait 3 weeks or so to see if she gets her period. And if she doesn't, then she can do a pregnancy test then. Theoretically, you could do a blood test for faster results, but that would also be not until a couple of weeks at least. The man. We're just really anxious because she really doesn't want to be pregnant. Is there anything that she can take to prevent the pregnancy? Any multivitamin, minerals, food? Me. Well, she's already taken it, which was the Plan B. There are some other options, but those are prescriptions. And no, there are no over-the-counter products that she can take. The man says, well, what about me? Is there anything I can take now to prevent the pregnancy? Any multivitamins or minerals? And the girl goes, no, sir. There isn't anything that you can do now. That's
wow.
hilarious.
So I guess we can use this as an opportunity to talk about what you can do in these situations. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, he can't do anything. Let's clarify that. He can, no matter what he does at this point, that ship has sailed, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The swimmer's swimming.
Yeah, that's right. Plan B. So, over the counter.
Mm-hmm.
It basically works by delaying or preventing ovulation. Kind of timing is really important because the sperm can survive for a period of time, right? So what you're trying to do is I think there's like 4 days or so where the sperm are going to survive, and you're trying to push out the period at which ovulation occurs so that egg does not meet with viable sperm. So that's Plan B.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that guy like just lives in there for 4 days and that's
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, so timing's really important. And so Plan B, typically, they say within I think it's within 3 to 5 days is your best chance there. Then there's the next one, which is sort of, it's called Ella. That's very similar. It's a prescription. What that does is it's a selective progesterone receptor modulator. Basically what it does is it pushes out ovulation, but it also changes the lining of the uterus, the endometrium, so that it's less likely to implant. It makes it slippery.
Oh, is that healthy? Just for a time or
just for a period of time?
Okay.
Yeah. And that can be effective a little bit later. I think Plan B, they say, is typically 3 days. Ella is more closer to 5 days. So you got 120 hours. Effectiveness is, again, pretty good. But, again, you have the whole issue of that 72-hour window. So, remarkably, the one that you don't hear about the most effective thing is a copper IUD, intrauterine device, because the copper basically releases these ions that create this toxic environment for sperm and egg, and prevents fertilization and prevents implantation. So again, but there's that timing issue again, where, it's going to be most effective. It can be inserted up to about 5 days after unprotected sex.
It lasts up to 10 years.
Yeah. 10 to 12 years. Right.
I had the copper IUD.
Oh, yeah?
And I did it because I didn't want anything with hormones, because I didn't want it to mess with my hormones. And when I would talk to the doctors, they were like, this is the safest. This is the most no hormones. It's going to you're saying, it's one of the most effective. And I was like, okay, we'll do that. And I don't know, I think my body completely did not like having like a metal in my body because I didn't have a period for like a year or a little after. And then I had to take it out because I was like, something's not like, I wanted to process of eliminate, like, okay, why am I not having a period? And I wasn't active anyway. It didn't really even matter. So I took it out, and then it still took me like another year and a half. Like another like year and a half or a little bit more until I got a period finally. I think it messed with everything. Like, I know I didn't get the hormone, but the metal, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that. But I mean, everyone said it's like the best option and everything, but my body just said no, thank you.
And obviously you could use that like in this situation as an emergency thing too. None of these are going to work if somebody's already pregnant. Just for completeness, there's an abortion pill combination of mifepristone and misoprostol. One of them blocks progesterone, and then the other one basically contracts the uterine lining. So that's basically what that is. That is a prescription thing. I don't even know if it's legal in some states now because the laws have changed, right? But use up to 10 weeks. I guess there's some websites that do some things illegally in terms of other pills and stuff like that. The guy, by the way, he can't do anything, as we've said, but just going back to options before, obviously you got condoms and vasectomy, and that's
right,
that kind of thing.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk to distinguished relationship coach and research psychologist, Dr. Joli Hamilton. Welcome back to Longevity Junky. Time for our guest interview. It's the breakdown with Dr. Joli Hamilton. Dr. Joli Hamilton is a research psychologist, certified sex educator, and relationship coach specializing in consensual, non-monogamy, jealousy, and intimacy. She holds a doctoral degree in depth psychology from Pacifica Graduate Institute and teaches courses on sexuality, communication, and kink BDSM for educators and therapists. Her work focuses on helping individuals and couples navigate alternative relationship structures, sexual desire, and emotional challenges related to jealousy and personal growth. She co-hosts the Playing with Fire podcast, where she explores unconventional relationships and sexuality. Her insights have been featured in the New York Times, Vogue, NPR, and The Atlantic, making her a recognized authority in the field of sexuality and alternative relationship dynamics. Welcome to the show, Joli. We're so excited to have you on here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super psyched.
I'm super excited too, because, I am single. Actually, Buck and I are both single. So I feel like getting to know a little bit more about relationships can set us up for success, hopefully sooner than later. But I want to know how you are a relationship expert, and yet you have this specialty in unconventional relationships. So I want to know how you got navigated to that.
Yeah, so I jumped out of the frying pan of monogamy about almost 16 years ago and right into the fire of living in a full-time cohabiting triad, like immediately. So I did it. When I did that, I made every mistake possible. I did everything. Like, if you read an instruction list of what to do, I did the opposite of all those things. And my way of figuring out what to do next was to go back to school. So at 35, I was now post-divorce. I went back, got my bachelor's, my master's, my doctorate, went back for another master's just for good measure, studying everything I could about relationships, about being really intentional in our relationships, and specializing. My research is in jealousy, which also really, really comes in handy, because if you're going to build unconventional relationships, in other words, some form of non-monogamy, some flavor of that, jealousy is going to come up. We're inviting it in the front door. So that's my professional research.
Jealousies happen just in like a normal male, female, or even just two people is my point, maybe.
Jealousy happens in every type of relationship, including our friendships. Anytime you have a feeling that your relationship could be threatened by a third person, boom, there's jealousy.
Hey, can we back up? I want to hear the story here. Like, so you just went boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden, I'm living with I'm in a triad.
Yep.
And so this is all, again, for me, I'm a single dad who lives by myself and doesn't have the excitement of two sexual partners living with me. Can you just tell us this story here? Like,
I am
not to
more than
pry,
happy
but
to.
I'm
No,
sure
no.
this is,
No,
you know.
I'm
let's
happy
cry.
to. Let's feel free.
Joli and I
Feel
are new
free.
best friends, so I'm
Oh
crying.
yeah, we're here. Let me share. So actually, it's a pretty funny intro because a bunch of my friends came out to me as like, oh, like they were swinging. They didn't even use that word, but basically there were some stories going on in our friend circle of like, hey, we're messing around. In fact, one of my friends came and she sat on my couch and she said, I have boy trouble. This is my first moment of even understanding that there's anything beyond monogamy.
Yeah.
I thought
and you're married at this point.
I was married. I had 4 children. I
Four
was
children.
32 years old. So this word, this idea of non-monogamy, like enters my psyche. And within months, it had percolated into, oh, so my sex life is not working, hadn't been the entire time we were together. I married my high school sweetheart, and our sex life hadn't worked since I was 17 years old.
Oh my God. Why would you even marry someone you can't have sex with?
To get out of my parents' house. That was it. It was a path, right? Not a good path, a path. And I loved being pregnant and having babies. So that part worked really well. So, we did have sex. It just wasn't satisfying.
4 times. 4 kids.
We
4
actually,
times.
I pushed it. We had more sex than that because I was the high drive partner. So we had more sex, but still, like, you want the good stuff. When I learned that non-monogamy was even a thing, it just it was like a seed had been planted that, hey, there are other options. I genuinely, in all my naivete, I was so innocent and tender. I'm 32 years old, but I had been raising children now for the last 10 years and thinking about that. It was a seed that took root and became, oh, well, our sex life doesn't work and we're good enough friends. Why don't we just stay married and do this open relationship thing? Why don't we do that? And I thought,
how did you broach that topic? I mean, because
the dumbest way possible, Buck.
Okay. Yeah.
Remember, she failed everything.
You're like, hey, how was your day? Hey, I just, I had this idea.
Oh, it's so much worse than that. So much worse than that. We were out at a club, and I had never done the bar scene, but we had recently opened a CrossFit together, my husband and I, and we were celebrating. So we were just out at a bar with some friends, and we were all dancing, and I started to feel some zhuzh for somebody I was dancing with, just a little something. Like I felt a little something. I was like, oh, that feels good. And I had always told my husband when I had crushes on girls, like he knew I was bi, and I'd always told him, I never did anything about it because we're monogamous. So whatever, crushes are crushes.
So this zhuzh was for a woman?
No, this zhuzh was for a guy, which changed everything.
Oh.
I naively hopped in the shower at 2:30 a.m. and I was like, just high on life, and I just casually was like, I'm having feelings. It feels like everybody else is doing this like open thing. What do you think? It's 2:30 in the morning. We've been drinking. There was no context. He had no idea. It was just insane. It was just silly. Don't do that. Do not do.
And what was his response?
Drinking.
His original response was silence, followed by a lot of sex. Because it was a turn on, right? There is also
like a turn on. Interesting.
Yeah. Jealousy can be. In fact, my research shows that jealousy is arousing for at least 30% of people. So it did do something. It was probably in the form of, he never said this, but probably in the form of like reclamation sex. Like, oh, you have interest in someone else? I'll show you. But you know what? It was good. So I took it. I was like, okay, ancillary benefit. I'll take it.
Okay.
Fine.
You're like, I'm going to try and make you jealous more often, honey.
It was really tricky because I thought, okay, now we've started a conversation. But what happened was this person that I felt the zhuzh for was also somebody I'd known my whole life. It was a close friend. I've literally known him my entire life. Like old family friend. Yeah. So what happened was a lot of confusion. And now at the same time, a lot of my friend circle is also experiencing, there's confusion in the room because now people are in their fuck around and find out stage of like, what happens when you fuck around? And when you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what questions to ask and you don't know how to set up clear, explicit agreements and you don't know what could unfold, you make mistakes. So we were all making mistakes, but my biggest mistake was I had no idea that it could go from feeling a zhuzh to feeling head over heels, what we call new relationship energy, NRE, that where I felt like I was falling in love.
Like a rabbit phase kind of.
Oh yeah. And it was insane. And so this all happened incredibly quickly. And I had no preparation. I didn't know what to do. So
Okay, well, where's the husband at this point? Is he still in the picture?
So we're together in this, but it's all happening incredibly rapidly over the course of just a few weeks. It's happening very, very fast. And because we're all involved in the same social circle, it starts to get really dark pretty fast. Because now he's realizing, wait, no, first he tries and he starts dating somebody. He starts seeing somebody. He's like, okay, I'll try that. But then he finds, no, that's not for him. No, not going to do that. And then there's this claim for, nope, I want our relationship to be what it always was. And this is where he made a mistake. So I made about 150 mistakes, and then he made a mistake. And this is what actually broke us. I understood that we had to negotiate. I did get like, oh, we need a therapist. We need help. We need someone to help us. But I didn't know who. We were still trying to figure out like how, where do we get that help? And my feelings were up. I did understand I could control my behavior. I understood that there was no excuse for me taking actions that were outside of our agreements. But my husband at the time made one critical error, and that is he didn't care about my actions so much as he wanted me not to have my feelings. So he asked me to stop having feelings, which is, of course, impossible.
That's impossible. Yeah.
It's impossible. So what happened is we wound up falling apart because I was like, oh, but I do have these feelings. I don't even want to, but I do. What do I do? Join me in this. Like, be in this puzzle with me. Help me figure it out. And he couldn't stay with that. So we split really fast.
And that's 45 days. That's, I feel like that's the reasonable thing. Like, it's, irreconcilable differences, they say at that point, right? Like, he just, he doesn't want to be part of that kind of
He didn't want to be part of the process, right? Because it was going to be. And that's where it's a bummer when I watch people do this too fast, because that's what happened to me. If you move incredibly fast, you haven't actually deconstructed, like, what is this relationship? What do I want from relationship in general? What is our marriage for? What are we actually doing for each other? What domains of relationship feel good and what don't? Where do we need help? If you don't do all of that first and you just open up, you turn all your attention to a new partner, and now we have more complexity. And now the original confusion is still there. But now we often blame the new relationship for the confusion when, the original relationship had these problems endemically. So the desire to open can be done well if we realize, like, yes, okay, we're going to need to get clear. If we want to be open and keep this relationship healthy, we both have to dig in and do a lot of self-awareness work.
Self-awareness, which is beautiful, but also it sounds like there's just so much communication that needs to be had. And I mean, even just from like my favorite book, and I'm probably going to like talk about this book this whole episode because it kept showing up when I was researching you and figuring out our show, The Body Keeps the Score.
Sure.
That book is my favorite. And so it sounds like when you're not able to communicate something, then it starts to store up. So, we're a longevity podcast. So I feel like that's why this is so interesting, hearing about like, well, you're really trying to, follow your feelings, follow your heart, do things that light you up, because that happiness and that exploration, having the proper communication, which I'm sure is what you help bring out and to make this all a healthy experience, it allows you to not have things bottled up and stored up and then manifest into disease and all these things. So This is actually a beautiful thing to start to get to know, and just so people out there can start to hear, okay, there are other people talking about this and not feel the shame and the guilt that, again, can bottle up and create disease within ourselves.
Right. And this actually also adds into the image that we wind up with around people who want to open up often are seen as inherently problematic, or like leaning into hedonism in a problematic way. But really what we need is a broader conversation about what are they actually looking for? Because opening is like, that's an incredibly complicated, there's so many ways to open, so many things you might be looking for. Everybody's journey is going to be unique through that. But we're looking to bring more life force forward. Like, most people enter into that because they're like, I want to be more myself. I want to really engage fully with my full eroticism, all of my eros. How do I do that? The answer isn't other people, but it might be that you want multiple relationships. But it's not, we get the order wrong a lot of times. It's not about add more relationships and you'll feel more alive. It's know more yourself, and you may find that you have the capacity to have multiple relationships really beautifully.
I was wondering, and this is for both of you, because again, I feel like you were like, all of your friends were doing this, and I'm like, how? None of my friends are doing this.
You think.
But that's what I was going to ask you about. It could very well be that I just don't know. But are you guys telling me that this is a very common thing at this point? Because for me, like, I don't know anybody who actually is doing the poly thing myself, who are at least I don't know of anybody.
You're not asking the right questions.
Let me give
maybe
you the
that's
stats
the case,
for
but
it.
I'm just curious how common this is. Like, you know.
So we have multiple research studies, let's say from 2010 up through now, so recent data, that clearly point we've got 4 to 5% of North Americans are practicing some form of consensual non-monogamy. So that could be
1 in 20, basically. So
right. And 20% of adults have practiced it at some point in their life. That's the same number of people. That's 20%. That's the same number of people. Wait.
But 20% were consenting, or there was just some cheating going on?
Consensual non-monogamy. Consensual. Many people try this, do this at some point. Many people also find it doesn't fit, or they also want, when they enter into their family raising stage, maybe they aren't, or maybe they just decide, yeah, you know what, I learned what I needed to from it. But 4 to 5% are practicing, and that's the number we have based on the fact that this is still a stigmatized practice, right? So we're not getting the full picture. Anytime we have a practice that is marginalized, right, I can be penalized. There are almost 1,200 codes on the books of American law that privilege marriage and couplehood, right? So we massively privilege the monogamous dyad. So when we have something like that as back pressure, we call that mononormativity. Mononormativity also tells us that probably we don't have the full stats on who's actually practicing, because lots of people are not out to their friends. They're not sharing this information. When I got the intel that my friends were doing some extra stuff, this went from me thinking, this is a group of about 30 adults, so about around 15 couples, that I assumed were all monogamous. Within a few months, I found that more than half of the couples were experimenting with some form of consensual non-monogamy.
Do you live in a big city?
No, I do not.
No?
I do not. I live in Western
Massachusetts. That happens more and more, like the Mormons and all those people, like more and
it
more.
happens everywhere.
They got multiple. Okay, so speaking of Mormons and stuff, so let me ask you this from a biological basis, and obviously you're a psychologist. What is the natural state of human beings? You think about, like, culturally, we've had in the past, many sort of situations where there's been polygamy. You don't see a lot of cultures with, I guess, what is it called?
Polyandry.
Polyandry, which is like one woman with multiple men. So I'm curious to get your perspective.
Okay, so first off, let's separate out. So polygamy has a really bad rap because there's been a lot of abuse, overlap with abuse and polygamy, especially in the United States, right? That has been it. I can't speak.
It's illegal,
to the
isn't it?
It's illegal, but also there's just, we do know it still was happening, and that there were lots of abuse, and then there were lots of big documentaries made, lots of TV shows. So we see a very negative portrayal. That is not my specialty. However, we do know there are still people who feel deeply held in that paradigm. Across the world, monogamy is not the only way, right? Cross-culturally, there are many options, but we don't have a ton of examples because now we've had hundreds of years of the primary story being we marry in pairs, we maintain monogamy because this protects property, this protects our survival, right? Marriage itself was designed to do this, right?
Cultural order.
Right. But who's designing that cultural order? It is not our basic biology, right? Our basic biology isn't making laws. It isn't writing doctrine, right? It doesn't do that. It can't. It's just not capable. But people are. People with power are able to. So we maintain social order, but that social order was someone's idea originally. Originally, somebody decides.
Has to come from somewhere.
It has to come from somewhere. And now we have, going back to the time when we were literally making either a survival-based marriage, Like, I need a helpmate because we'll both die if we don't have somebody to play these roles in our household. Or this is all about keeping property and money, right? For the wealthy, it was about how do we move money around and how do we move power around. But around the beginning of the 20th century, we see the upshot of love marriage, right? And the idea that you should marry for love. And the thing is, we haven't nailed it. It's not like we're not still having survival marriages and property marriages and socioeconomic bracketing being part of our marriage strategy. So to ask the question, what is natural? Well, you could look at the book, Christopher Ryan's book on Sex at Dawn, and look at, well, clearly humans are capable of and desirous of multiple mating patterns. Like, there are lots of that. Recent research, Mogelski's research on, there are multiple viable strategies for having a healthy, happy adulthood.
Desire-wise, same for men and women? Is that what the research shows? I'm curious about that because, obviously there's a cultural bias there as well, but there's potentially a biological reason for women to be less interested in multiple men as well. So I'm just curious and that's why I'm kind of digging into. Yeah.
Well, let's look at it this way. So you could think, if we're going to go with like an evolutionary strategy. Yeah. So let's say we want to have a man has an evolutionary advantage if he spreads his seed widely, right? And he's just doing that. Yeah, actually, if a woman receives all these different partners and we stop focusing on a single partner, right? Then we have community support. In communities where women raise their children with their families of origin, they're incredibly safe. They are not dependent on a single man deciding to protect them. There are many viable strategies if we stop focusing on this idea that one man and one woman are the only normal pattern for relationship. And when we think about desire-wise, actually, there are arguments to be made, and you can read it in several studies and in that particular book if people are interested, that point to the idea that actually a woman may have many reasons, biological reasons, for seeking out multiple partners, including, sperm travel in certain ways, right? They don't all travel at the same speed. They don't all travel the same way. If they have multiple exposures, and you're talking about a survival of the fittest, well, now they're racing it out down there.
Mm-hmm.
They're figuring it out down there.
The Olympian will win.
Right. And it's not just about physical fitness at that point, because this is such a deeply mysterious topic to us still. What really creates a good match between these gametes? Like, what really does that? It's so multi-layered, and we can't get a perfect match. We don't have the tech to totally understand this. Otherwise, we'd have fertility cracked. It would be set. It would be done. And that's not where we're at. There are a lot of arguments to be made, but the picture we usually hold is something like, oh, it's just men wanting more sex. It's just men who want to have their cake and eat it too. That is not what I see in my practice at all. I tend to work with people who are between 35 and 60. And the vast majority of women who come through my practice are highly motivated toward non-monogamy. Most of them are post-raising their kids, or they've already had their kids, and they're like, yeah, I'm not satisfied with one partner. I want more. I want more out of my sex life. Yes, also more out of my emotional life. I want to be able to make connections the way I see fit. They also have the capacity to handle lots of emotions. So they're incredibly motivated.
Healthy. It's
and
so
satisfied.
healthy to feel emotions.
Right. And sometimes what I see is the man in a particular heterosexual pair, the man might be more inclined to be the initiator. They might be the one who says, let's go to the sex club. Let's start swinging. Let's be polyamorous. And then they get into it and they find out, oh, this is more communication and more emotions and more stuff. Even if we try to limit that, even let's say we try to do it it'll just be about sex. There's no such thing. But let's just say we pretend that that's true. Yeah, but then it gets complicated. And then they find out, in fact, their wife's having a great time, having a wonderful time. I call that the flip. They get in, and at some point there's this flip of now the initiating partner's like, never mind, I think I want monogamy. I don't want to do this anymore. And it's often the woman then who's like, yeah, you know what? Now I have built meaningful relationships for myself. I have found my sexual self. So thanks, but I'm good. I like this.
I wanted to ask you, in the beginning, you said something about you became kind of a jealousy expert.
That's what my academic research is on, yeah.
So Is jealousy healthy?
I'm a stan for jealousy because jealousy has a job to do. Whether it's healthy or not depends on how you behave when it shows up. Jealousy itself is there for a reason. It is the emotional response to a perceived threat to a valued relationship, right? And jealousy is separate from envy. Jealousy is when I have a valued relationship and I feel there's an interference, an interruption from an actual person or somebody I imagine, right? It could be the elusive, somebody they're working with or somebody they see at a club. We can imagine that person up, but there's a third person. Envy is when I want to be what they are, I want to have what they have, right? So let's first sort those two out. Jealousy's job is to keep us connected to that valued other. And it shows up as young as 6 months old. When jealousy is first there, it's to keep you connected to your primary caregiver. There are these great studies showing like babies respond with jealousy when their mother's attention turns to another baby, but not when it turns to a book. Come on, it's kind of beautiful. So we don't want to get rid of jealousy because jealousy has a job to do. However, many people have no idea what to do with jealousy. And this makes sense because we're not taught what to do with jealousy. We are instead taught that it is a bad emotion, that we shouldn't be jealous, that we should share everything. So then we conflate jealousy and envy, and we're told to share everything from our toys to our siblings to our soccer balls, everything. And then so jealousy's bad. Don't ever show jealousy. Then we grow up and we have romantic relationships and we're teenagers and nobody tells us what to do with the jealousy there. We have best friends. Oh my God, 3 girls in a room. Jealousy's rampant. Nobody tells us what to do there because also our parents didn't know and we don't know. And then, and now we're grown-ups and we transfer a lot of that attachment energy from our childhood into our romantic relationships. Sounds great, except we have the jealousy problem. If jealousy is there to keep me connected to the valued other and I have no idea what to do with it when it shows up, well, jealousy is also part of a huge preponderance of domestic violence reports, right? Jealousy, the action someone chooses when jealousy shows up is often outsized. It is often pointed directly at the other. It is incredibly hostile, either in aggression or in sadness. Sometimes the violence is directed toward the self. There's threats to life, threats to safety, right? Jealousy puts us in a very, very infantile threat state, right? And that's real. We shouldn't overlook that. We weren't taught what to do with jealousy. However, if we are patient with jealousy, if we start learning that, oh, I know what jealousy feels like in my body, I'm feeling it, I'm sensing it, we have the opportunity to learn more about ourselves and more about our partners. Because if when jealousy showed up, we were like, whoa, I'm suspicious, something's happening. Whether I see it happening in real life or I imagine it, ideally, I would turn my attention to my partner, to that relationship. I would get to know what it feels like in myself. I would start unpacking what's the story I'm telling about, what does jealousy mean? What does it mean about my relationship? And then I would negotiate with my partner so that I had clearer understanding of what's in bounds, what's out of bounds, how do they meet my needs, how can they reassure me? But most of us skip all of that and we just flip out in our preferred method of flipping out.
Yeah.
So jealousy can be healthy if we know what to do with it, but most of us don't.
I found when I'm not interested in a guy, and then if I see them, if I see him with another girl and I see the girl really liking him and I see how he treats her, and if it's nice, then I'll start to be like, well, fuck, maybe I could like this guy.
Yeah, his perceived mate value went up. When that happens, now all of a sudden there's something, right? There's something happening that we could turn to evolutionary theory again to look at that. And also there's evidence. We don't have to just look at evolution. We could also look at, well, if I'm literally seeing him treat someone nicely, okay, that's evidence. That matters to me.
Yeah.
That's just using good judgment. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we also feel like we're all swimming in a sea of stories and songs and everything that tell us that jealousy is proof of love, right? Look at Carrie Underwood singing about, taking a baseball bat to the pickup truck. We got the Beatles with "I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than to be with another man," right? And this is supposed to signify
that lyric exists.
It's crazy, but that's supposed to signify romance to us. That's the message we're supposed to interpret. And Eminem, we've setting fire to the bed, right? We're supposed to interpret this as, oh, look at all that passion.
Passion, yeah.
Okay. But that's because we never figured out culturally what to do with jealousy. We do not have a cultural conversation about jealousy. Up until the 80s, jealousy could be used as legal defense for murder in some states. Thank you, Texas and Utah. Even though it's not now, look at just the court of public opinion. When someone is accused of harm, frequently their first defensive move will be to say how they were made to feel jealous, right? And that then buys them social leeway to have hurt someone physically or harmed them emotionally. Like that, it's like baked into our cultural consciousness. And all cultural shadow needs to be brought into the light. But we're not very good at it. And jealousy is definitely there for America.
Should we be concerned at all in terms of impact in children?
Oh, I have 7 kids. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So I
With
I have 7
there's so many
children.
bad jokes there.
I
There's
know,
so many
right?
bad jokes.
Like, where'd they all come from? Come on.
Are they all one dude?
No, they're not. The first 4
She
fathered by
told you
one
there was a
person.
race, okay? She told you there was a race.
No, the other 3 were birthed by another human, but I've been raising them their whole lives. My
Okay.
kids are all adults now. The youngest is just about to turn 18. So my kids are 18 to 25. And it's fascinating. People always say, what about the children? But again, we have this imagination that that a 2-parent, heterosexual family is the ideal, or at least a 2-parent mononormative family. Okay. Is it? First off, most people aren't being raised in 2-parent families. The divorce statistics alone, right? But even if that were true, let's not deride all the single parents out there doing a bang-up job. They're doing a great job. And then on top of that, how much do your kids know about your sex life?
Not very much, right?
Buck, you have kids. How much do they know about your sex life?
Nothing.
Right. So why would my sex life have anything? So if I feel like maintaining,
but yours is a little bit different, right? Because you actually, this is not just sex
for me,
life,
it's
but
not just sex. Yeah.
You're permanent. You actually have you're living with people, right?
Right now, I'm not. So, but lots of people do. Yes, and there is a difference. But lots of people are experiencing multiple sexual partners, even multiple meaningful partners, but they're still living in 2-parent households. So that's a totally. And in that case, really ask yourself, like, your kids, they don't care about your sex life. They don't want to know. So it's fine. But is there an impact? Yes, sometimes there is. I'm very out. I've been out for 16 years. Like, I'm incredibly out. So my kids know that I'm polyamorous. I mean, I have a TEDx on the topic of compersion, which is a very, they know. Hiding. Everybody knows. No hiding.
Like,
Does it have an impact?
Did they share you at school? Did they?
Yes, it's really, really interesting to see. Like, some of my kids are like, oh, my mom does that. So, yeah, sure. They're they're the ones educating their friends. My mom does that. You can go. But others of my kids are like, oh God, mom. Oh, mom, always with the sex talk. Yeah, because they're just kids, like having their own, and now they're adults, having their own opinions.
Will they come to you for advice now that they're adults?
They do. But so thus far, all monogamous. Thus far, it's fascinating to me to see how people imagine that there's some sort of indoctrination or some sort of
rebellion. It's rebellion against you, Joli.
Right? It is, right? I always said they were going to grow up to be just so conservative in their sex lives because here I am with all my and maybe, but I don't know. I don't even think they're going to tell me, and that's okay. They come to me with questions, but I don't need to know all the details.
That's nice, though. That it's at least nice to have an open line of communication, and for your kids to feel, anyone really, to be able to feel safe enough with something so, like, a topic that's so shameful to most, to be able to come and talk to somebody that's not going to judge them, that's out there actually, doing the failure to succeed. And I think that that's really healthy.
One of our kids was recently on our podcast. My anchor partner and I have a podcast. And this kid turned 18 and came on the podcast and said, like, I just want to talk about it because people ask all the time, like, what about the kids? What about the kids? And he was like, I'll talk about it. I'll tell you how it was for me. And his primary, where he's like, yeah, when I was little, I didn't care. And we were living in a triad at the time. He was like, I don't know. I had more grownups to take care of me. Why would I mind that? And as he got older, what he said is, it gave me permission to be myself. He's trans. And he was like, yeah, I knew that it would be safe to come out to you because you come out, you're open, you talk about your bisexuality. Da talks about his bisexuality. Like, of course you'd be accepting of me. So it did create a natural environment for him to feel like, yeah, I just get to be myself. And that's all I care about with my kids. Do they get to be themselves, even if they're monogamous?
That's so funny. Such a flipped script of like,
Right?
even if they're monogamous, when usually that's like,
I will find it in my heart.
I'll love you anyway.
I'll love you anyway, even if you don't love other people. I love this.
Hey, what's the difference between ethical, monogamy? What are all these terms? Like
Yeah,
ethical,
break all that down. There's so many out there.
Yeah.
creative monogamy.
There's so many words. I like the umbrella analogy, right? There's the analogy we could use of I like consensual non-monogamy at the top of that umbrella, because consensual non-monogamy says it all. Like, everybody involved is consenting to being involved, right? So, but that could look like a lot of things. Consenting can still look like don't ask, don't tell. From the outside, a don't ask, don't tell policy might look like cheating. But if everybody consented and was like, yeah, go ahead, do whatever you want, but outside of my vision, I don't want to know about it. It's not my personal preference, but for some people, that works, and it's not my decision. Consensual non-monogamy and ethical non-monogamy are used interchangeably. I tend not to use ethical non-monogamy because it implies that there's unethical non-monogamy.
Yeah, I was going to ask what unethical.
And it implies something I don't think we actually mean, which is that we're using some major set of ethical bounds, but in fact, we're all creating our relationship. I tend to use CNM as the acronym, or just non-monogamy. And the reality is, cheating is non-monogamy too. Right? And cheating happens all over the place, all the time. But we get poorer life outcomes in general with cheating, right? Like, our STI rates and our disclosure rates around sexual partners are way lower. Like, our STI rates are higher and our disclosure rates are lower if we're cheating. Because obviously, if I'm cheating on you, I'm going to be really resistant to the idea of telling you I have gonorrhea, right? Like, I don't want to.
Like, where'd you get that shit? Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas if I'm consciously negotiating with you, you know that we are consenting to an open relationship. Okay, this isn't fun. Nobody wants gonorrhea, but let's just talk about it. Let's say, like, hey, I got it. Let's go get tested. Let's get treated, and let's move on. So we do have better health outcomes along those lines. We also have other terms that, like you said, polyamory. So polyamory is a frisky little conglomeration of Greek and Latin. It's many loves, polyamory. Generally speaking, when people say they're polyamorous, they mean that they're open not just to sexual connection, but also to romantic and emotional connection, right? There's a desire often even to build families with each other. You know, my other 3 kids came to me because I got involved in a triad, and then we got married, and it was a whole thing. And now I have 7 kids, right? And that family building piece of polyamory isn't for everybody, but there is an implication of meaningful depth of emotion. Then we have relationship anarchy. Relationship anarchy, I mean, you can be monogamous and relationship anarchist, because relationship anarchy is about having a totally custom-built relationship that is incredibly conscious and explicit for the people in it, by the people in it.
Why is that anarchy? That sounds like more communism.
Right, doesn't it? Because
it
relationship anarchy is about the fact that we don't adhere to the default and we don't adhere to anyone else's norms.
Okay.
We decide for ourselves.
You just decide for yourself, even if it is simply polyamory, but they're saying it as
but they're getting really clear.
We are creating it. We are not labeling it, but okay.
Yeah. Then we have terms like open. Open often means we're maintaining like a social image of monogamy, but behind the scenes, we may be going to sex clubs. We might be having full swaps with other partners. There are all sorts of things. We might be dating independently, but there's still a focus on monogamy. I tend to call that creative monogamy, because I like to actually center the fact that some people really do want to maintain their monogamous exclusivity. That's their primary focus. And anything else is like, yeah, we could add a sunroom onto this house, but I'm not remodeling. I'm not doing the whole thing. Like, we're just additions only. And that's tricky to maintain because we don't know what will happen over time. But that is often what people set out for, is that open relationship. And then we have swinging, which is kind of an old throwback term, but it's a great term. We could also use the term polysexual. That's where people are, again, focused on maintaining the confines of monogamy in some ways, but around sex, there's real clarity of like how we swap, what's in, what's out. There's often an interest in keeping emotional relations on the lower end side, not no emotions usually, but like like care can be present, but not like I'm going to go take care of you when you're ill kind of emotions. And of course, everyone's making it up for themselves. So you got to ask each person, what do you mean when you say that word?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's for me specifically, like I've always found that my my vagina is connected to my heart. Like I can't get it up if I'm not like in love with you or care about you deeply, or like I think I'm I'm attracted to intelligence a lot. You know, if I think you're a dumbass, even though you look hot, like I still can't get it up for you. Like
So you're
no
a
lady bone.
demisexual, sapiosexual.
I'm sapiosexual. Yeah.
And a demisexual. If your vagina wants only what your heart craves and you need those two things connected, the word we use for that is demisexual. Great. Awesome. You know that. Demisexual.
Demi.
Yeah, DEMI. These words only matter when you're trying to help somebody else understand you. So,
or on a dating site, I guess that would be.
Yeah, I'm gonna put
very
demisexual, sapiosexual.
Yep. My husband is demisexual. I'm not, but he is. So it's great for him.
He's a sweet man.
Because he's very, very sweet. He's very emotional.
Yes.
He's also like, he's 6 foot tall. His shoulders are out to here. He has a jawline for days. So he doesn't present that way. So he actually has to use words to help people understand. Like, yeah, it's like you said, it's not getting up unless I care about you. Like he's like, no, he's like not interested in the just like pop it and go. He's just, no way.
Speaking of dating sites, though, how are people meeting? I keep going back to this idea that this is not my world. And
you're in such denial.
How are we doing this?
Yeah, no, it's not that I'm in denial. I'm in ignorance is what I am. So what does somebody do if they're wanting to do this? Is there specific websites or dating sites that people could go on to that aren't your usual?
So there are, but also Hinge, Bumble, a lot of the sites also have the option for you to choose either open relationship, consensual non-monogamy, like to choose that. I'm on.
Right, it says, what are you looking for? And sometimes you can write like monogamy, you can write open relationship. Yeah, you can.
And then there are sites that are geared a little bit more toward like specific, not just non-monogamy, but like, hey, everybody's creating their own thing. So that would be like Field and Plura are websites that when you're on those sites, you know people are looking for a variety of things. And versus like Hinge, I'm on Hinge, but I'm much less likely to meet somebody who's going to match with me because they're looking for their one person. Yeah. I'm available for intense emotional connection, but if they're looking for their one person to move in with, I'm like, you can move in, but my husband's staying. And that's not for everybody, and that's totally fine. There are other sites, but there's a lot of overlap at this point too. OkCupid is like, it's so rampantly filled with non-monogamists as well as monogamists. And this actually creates some confusion because there's also the category of person who's like, I'm open to either. I don't really know. And they might identify as ambiamorous. So they might actually be like, you know what? I've done both. I could do either. Maybe monogamy, maybe something else, but I'm open. But many people on dating websites choose to say, I'm open to non-monogamy, when what they really mean is they want to date multiple people at the same time. They're in their dating phase, and that's fine. I wish we could bring back the time when it was just normal to date multiple people until you wanted to choose an exclusivity.
When you say bring back that time, tell me what you mean by that.
Well, when I was younger, there was a period of time where you could expect that you needed to have a define the relationship conversation. And up until you didn't know whether you were exclusive. That might happen on date 3, but it might also happen 3 months, 6 months, 9 months in. Now,
you feel like that's changed?
I do. And one of the reasons I see it changing amongst my clients is there is this other language. And so some people are using the language of non-monogamy, but they don't actually mean I want to be non-monogamous. Like that's my preference and that's what I'm going to do. They mean I'm just not going to settle into one relationship. But here's what happens. I am available. I am deeply polyamorous, and I am available for multiple meaningful relationships. So what happens in my personal life is I start dating people who say they're open to non-monogamy. And when they're dating me, eventually they find their real person, their monogamous person, and I get dumped. There's a difference between dating other people. It's kind of like dating your species. Like when I'm dating somebody who already knows they're non-monogamous, yeah, they may meet somebody that they even may like move in with and marry. But if they're non-monogamous, we don't have to break up. We're all non-monogamous and we're practicing non-monogamy. So that, I think, has just shifted the language, especially in app dating.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that if there's an app thing, because in my experience, I'll tell you, just in my experience on dating sites, and I don't know, Nikki, tell me what your experience is with your friends and stuff like this, because I think like no, but like women on those sites, they are very clear. They are looking for a serious relationship.
Which sites are you on?
Well, like the Bumbles and the Hinges and all the usual stuff is, with my experiences. But I'm just saying, like that may be why I'm finding this so foreign, because my experience has been that 9 out of 10 of those profiles will be somebody who's saying they want a very, a serious,
their person,
sort of, monogamous relationship.
So. I agree completely. That's exactly what you'll find, especially because you're a guy. So I have a dating profile. It doesn't matter whether I could set it to monogamous. I could set it to non-monogamous. I am going to have a very different experience than you would. I am going to have an experience of getting, 1,000 hits from men who are just perfectly happy to just swipe right, hoping they can get some pussy. That's it.
Yeah, but then women are different. That way is what you're saying, right?
I'm saying that there is a difference in in app dating. There are plenty of women who are out there to have great sex, to have a lot of sex, to have anonymous sex, to have multiple partner sex. But in the dating world, on the apps especially, if you're looking for your person and you're a woman, you have a different pool. You're aiming at a different pool. If you're aiming at a heterosexual relationship, now you have to wade through the hundreds of men with no intentions of being emotional or even carrying on a decent question or even asking you a single question on your first date, because for some reason they can maintain an entire 3-hour monologue about themselves without asking you a question. That's very different than a man who's on a dating site and is like, I'm getting crickets. Like everybody seems to want me to tell them I'm going to marry them immediately. This is a problem of the monogamous dating world. So when we leave that and we enter the non-monogamous dating world, we have a different set of issues, a different set of conundrums. It's not that there are no problems, but it's a different set of them. And there are plenty of women out there looking for non-monogamy, doing non-monogamy. More than half of my clients are women.
All of them in a relationship? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do they have somebody already but they're looking to...
Multiple relationships, most of them. Yeah.
Damn, I can't fucking find one. Jesus.
It's not... Sometimes
we're
this
just
is
such
about,
losers, Nikki. Like,
well, you know what happens when you do the non-monogamy thing, though?
Yeah.
You get really clear about what your standards are, what your needs, wants, and desires are. You get incredibly clear about what you're not going to settle for. So I go on a ton of first dates. I go on very few second and third dates. My ability to discern is so quick, right? So it's lots of first dates, not a lot more. But when I connect with someone, I know how to articulate to them. My clients know how to articulate not just what they want, but what they're available for. How many times have you been on a date with somebody who could say, here's what I have to offer? And they can just say that like on the second or third date.
That doesn't happen very much.
Yeah, so your date, it's so different to date somebody who's able to do that. It's delicious. It's amazing.
Yeah, that sounds really healthy.
It's one of the things that keeps me in this is like, yes, it's more communication. Yes, there's more effort. Yes, there's more self-awareness work. And I watch my clients go from having a lot of blankness, a lot of like, they're just going with the flow of what they expect from life into, they're creating the life they want to have. They may wind up not having. Many of my clients go through a process of learning about non-monogamy, exploring, dating multiply, doing a lot of differentiation work with their partners, really getting clear, doing lots of self-awareness work, and then arrive at, you know what? I do want monogamy, but I want very conscious, clarified monogamy.
I think that's what this would do for me too, in that sense. Like it would just help me understand my boundaries, which is super healthy and beautiful to understand, and then to articulate. Holy shit, that's like next level. And I think that would, if I were to try this, I mean, I'm just out dating right now. Not that that's very active.
That's enough. It's so
I'm
much.
trying. It's like I'm really trying here.
Nikki, I totally just, I got to tell you, I know you, I cannot
Talk to
see
me
you
about it.
in this world.
I might be willing to try, but I really am not that type. Like I really want, I honor communication. So this part of it that you're talking about makes me feel very like, wow, I'm jealous of that beautiful communication. And I guess if I have to try multiple, which I don't think I'm going to survive that.
But
I
there's
don't
the thing,
know,
you don't. But this is why the work is really about you, you doing the work. So I have people who come in. So I only work with people for at least a year. I don't work with anybody for less than a year because this is about like shifting your paradigm of relating, right? And that takes immense effort and sustained effort. So rather than putting the effort out there on who's out there and who you're going to go get, you put the effort on who am I? What is it I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is when I'm
Always
working with
starts with
people,
you.
yeah, the whole first half of the year is about getting to know yourself, doing a lot of forensics and like, what have you created in your past relationships? What part of this is you? I'm a depth psychologist. I studied Jungian and archetypal psychology, which means I care about the unconscious. I care about getting into that. And from there, I have many people who come to realize like, oh, this was never about multiple relationships. Now I have the skills to do that. I might do that. Maybe I'll do that. But really, it's about I know myself and I have done the work. Now, there is a downside. There is a negative, and it's a bummer. And it is that once you can know yourself this deeply and articulate what you need and ask the questions to draw out of the other, your dating pool shrinks.
For sure.
Because a lot
Mine
of
is going to go to zilch.
Yeah, I mean, you're hot. Like, this would be really, like, I mean,
I know.
She's
funny
true.
that way though. I'm telling you, I know this woman, and she looks a very different way than she is.
Yeah, so you're gonna have people trying to get
Not that you look slutty or something. You look beautiful. But the point is that it always cracks me up because you're just such the like super innocent, sweet, like I don't know, just hilarious. Just hilarious when you meet Nikki Lee compared to like the image of the magazine.
Right. Yeah. People always think I'm some sort of like whore or something. And I'm like, I don't know. No,
but
not at all.
that's what we have culturally done to like, that's what we have created out of womanhood, right? There are like 4 archetypes the woman can be. And one of them is the whore. And your collarbones and your hair and your cheekbones and your eyebrows qualify you for whore status. Like, fuck that. It's so upsetting to me. But it is true that you're going to get clocked, especially in the dating app world. You're going to get clocked as by many people who could articulate to you and do want you are going to be intimidated, frightened, afraid that they can't, that like they don't rate you. So they may not even approach you. Then you have all the people who absolutely can't, but they just like how you look and they've classified you. They've categorized you.
A lot of them are impressed that I have depth. I'm like, what?
Have they listened to you talk?
That's actually why I instantly, and we said this off, instantly I will voice note them and I will talk to them because voice matters so much. And also I always get a compliment back about how I'm articulate and how they're like, wow, like you're really articulate. Like I really enjoy your voice. I enjoy speaking with you. Like it's kind of hilarious.
It's almost kind of insulting, right? Because it's like, what did you think? I didn't really like speak in complete sentences or something like that,
right? I don't know. They just think I'm gonna be like, oh my god, whatever, as if I'm fucking
right, as if your blonde hair somehow defines you,
right?
And it does in their imagination, but that and that is a them problem, but it's a you problem because it's on your doorstep. That's what's happening, right? You might actually be better suited for matchmaking than for dating apps. Somebody to play that intermediary role and be like, oh, we are going to rule out all of these people who like absolutely do not have the depth for Nikki. Like this is not about does Nikki have enough depth for them? Let us rule all of those men out because no. And the app world, I like the apps. I like that they exist, but they have introduced a huge number of issues that we are not yet equipped to deal with. And the non-monogamy piece of that actually intensified post-COVID. Like when we all came out of hibernation there, we come out, and the numbers of people who said they were non-monogamous had just like quadrupled immediately. My dating apps went from I might have 15 matches in an area to having 150. And it was shocking. But a lot of people, while they were all quarantined up, did some deep thinking and decided to open their relationships. But they still didn't know what they're doing. And so now here we are, several years out of that, and we're still dealing with the fact that the apps and how we interact with them haven't really caught up. Like, we haven't caught up to them and they haven't caught up to us. So it's a messy game. And understanding how to vet and how to like get through all the nonsense on there is a part of the non-monogamy experience that I often wind up walking people through, where they're like, okay, so I want to open up, but that sounds like a lot of work. Like, I'm down for the self-awareness, but do I have to get on an app? Like, ugh.
Joli, tell us about your podcast.
I have a podcast called Playing with Fire. It is about non-monogamy as a path to psychological individuation. Like I said before, I studied Jungian psychology. And that means I care about your individuation process. So my anchor partner, Ken, and I get together and we have these conversations about how the actions of non-monogamy and having really conscious relationship create opportunity for us to become more and more ourselves. Because individuating is about just continually bringing unconscious material into conscious awareness. And non-monogamy is not the only path to your individuation. Like, your whole life is your path. But non-monogamy puts you in some situations to confront shadow material. And that's what we talk about on Playing with Fire.
And what kind of people come to you? Like when they what kind of people come to you for help? Because it sounds like you do so many things.
I run a program called the Year of Opening. And the reason I have that is because I used to do private work. And there are a lot of, I have some wonderful colleagues who do private coaching in non-monogamy. And that's often people who they've just opened up or they've been open and things are going wrong. And so they go look for a therapist, and often they find, okay, I need therapy. Maybe I need a coach, something. I do that work. My private work it's pretty expensive because I roll up my sleeves and I get all up in your stuff. But I created a group program because most people who really want this work, they're turned on by these ideas. It's not actually about, do I open or not? Or at least that's just the tip of the iceberg. They're excited about the idea of opening up themselves, about learning how to have this conscious relationship. So I teach multiple cohorts throughout the year at small groups. I love being in small groups with people where we see the inside of other people's relational reality, whether they're single or partnered. I have, singles, I have couples, and I also have some polycules who show up and they're like, well, we're open and this is hard. I love operationalizing how we do relationships. So I'm all about like, hey, here's not just, hey, communicate better. Here are the tools. Here are tools. Try this out. Let's actually get in and try it. And let's demonstrate it. And let's work together and let's talk about how it works.
How can people find that stuff?
You can go to yearofopening.com. And I also have an hour-long free class that I teach once a month at openeasier.com, where people can find out, like, what does it take? What are the 5 essential elements? What would I need to get my house in order to open up, so that I don't do it the way Joli did it. Do it the way I teach it, not the way I did it.
Right. I mean, I love all this. I just like you've been saying, you dive into some, like, you as an individual, and that's what's attracting me right now. Is I know in order for you to have these deep conversations, you have to know your boundaries. You have to know how to communicate, and the self-work that you have to take and the awareness, that's what I'm attracted to right now.
That's what keeps me in it, Nikki. To me, if it were just about like getting people laid, I'd be bored. I'd be bored by now. Like, that's actually easy. I am an ASEX certified sex educator. I do love sex education, but that's actually easy. What's hard is helping people become more and more aware of who they are. The stats tell us, like,
authentic.
Most of us think that we know ourselves, but most of us are deluding ourselves most of the time. And all of us are deluding ourselves some of the time. So that's the deeper work. That's why to do it.
Thank you so much.
I really appreciate your. Thank you both. This was a great conversation. I love that you just dove straight in.
It's the only way to go.
That's the only way to go. I don't even mind. Like. You asked me a question. I'm very authentic and genuine because I want to know as well. Like that whole knowing myself. I'm like, oh, I got an expert. I need ask me. I'll tell you because I truly want to know more myself so that I can navigate this one life that I got right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that you really stuck to the core, which there's no right way to do relationships. Monogamy, non-monogamy, that's not the question. They can both be great. Do the thing that feels right for you, but do it with consciousness. Choose intentionally.
That will be living a longer and happier life.
Yes, exactly.
Longevity.
With a lot more sex.
Yeah, that too. And better sex.
We know a urologist who would say sex is good for you. Sex is
There
good.
we go.
It is, right? We got to keep things flowing.
True. Movement. You got to use it or lose it, sister and brother.
Thanks again.
Aw. Joli, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you both so very much.
Okay, well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with our healthy takeout.
Longevity Junky is grateful to our partners at BioAccelerator for a very memorable trip and experience.
Agreed. Buck and I both benefited greatly from this incredible stem cell therapy, which can play a huge role in longevity.
You may know BioAccelerator is one of the leading stem cell research laboratories in the world, delivering advanced therapies directed at anything from anti-aging, pain relief, skin rejuvenation, and even preventive care.
It is truly inspiring work that can help each and every one of us. And if you want to learn more, please reach out to Liz at Longevity Junky at bioaccelerator.com for special discounts and offers. That's Longevity Junky, spelled with a Y, at BioAccelerator.com for special discounts and offers. Welcome back to Longevity Junky. Time for our healthy takeout.
Well, you behaved a lot better than I thought you would. I thought you were going to go all sailor. I thought you were going to go...
Well, if it didn't become that way, that was what was so impressive.
Right,
I thought we were going to be talking about who does what when we're all in bed where are we going. But I mean, it really became such a more in-depth and beautiful kind of situation. That was really impressive to me.
I mean, people are probably wondering why we did this. And there's a couple reasons. I think there's one, which is just sort of I think just in general, there is an element of what we're trying to hit here, which is psychology and wellness and all that. And it does seem like there are people who have, marital problems, issues with sexuality, things like that. So we thought we'd address it in a fun way. And that's kind of what we did.
Also, what I touched on, honestly, I said, I'm going to bring this book back up. The body keeps the score. It all festers, disease and all these things that shorten our life and make it unhealthy fester because of not being able to be our authentic self, feeling shame and trapping that, not being able to find the words to express ourselves and trapping that. So trapping feelings, trapping what we actually want out of life. And then that festers into disease. So seeing that this woman, Joli, she's incredible to be able to even help somebody relieve that and talk openly and honestly about what they want. And sometimes you just think, she said that they come thinking that they want just this more fun, multiple partners. They just want to fuck around and they want to do all this. But it ends up becoming something where they actually deep dive into themselves. They understand themselves more. They're able to speak their boundaries. They're able to have beautiful communication, which I'm sure relieves so much shame and stress and all these things that really allow us to have a longer health, longevity in our life, period.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how some people, and this happens for so many subjects, where you think it's one thing and you have this perceived, oh, well, it's going to be all about sex or it's all about this, but it actually becomes so much deeper and more more in depth or personal than anyone could imagine. And again, it starts with you. Everything starts with you, from your choices of what you want to eat, how often you want to move and work out, to how are you going to express yourself. So, I mean, it's interesting how it all ties in, even though on the surface you don't initially think it will.
Yeah. Well, I certainly learned a lot.
Yeah, for sure, right? For sure. I love she was great. She's such a sweetheart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I love it.
Anyway, great show. You want to read us out?
Of course. Longevity Junky is created by Dr. Buck Joffrey, MD, and it is executive produced by myself, Nikki Lee, Dr. Buck Joffrey, and Phil Ferragamo. We're distributed by our friends at Acast. See you next time.